6 o'clock, I will call the October 27th, 2020 Wythe County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. This evening we have Reverend Steve Dew from the United Lutheran Church to offer invocation. If you would please rise and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, before you is assembled a group of citizens who will be conducting the business of the people tonight. We pray that as they engage in this endeavor, that you guide them, that you direct them, that you instruct them, so that as the meeting is closed later tonight, the conduct, the thoughts, the discussions will reflect great credit upon themselves and the positions they hold, upon those whom they serve, and to honor you. We pray this in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda tonight is introduction of our new Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Matthew Hankins. Mr. Barrett, I'll let you give his bio.
Well, I tell you what, I will start out by saying, first of all, my appreciation to the board for funding in the budget this year, Assistant County Administrator position. Just with 1 week, it has been very appreciative of having someone to assist us with tasks, and there's still a lot more tasks to offload and him to assist us with in the process. But I will defer. We are glad to have him here after formerly working in Rocky Mount. But as the voice of Emory and Henry Wasp, he is more than capable of providing us plenty of information about himself. So, Mr. Hankins, welcome aboard, and please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm really pleased to be here in Wythe County. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I too am glad that you funded the position this year. I've had the opportunity to serve in local government for both for the city of Martinsville and for the town of Rocky Mount, Virginia, where I served as subdivision agent, planning and zoning administrator, assistant town manager, CEO of the Harvester Performance Center, and any number of other things that they could have me do. So I look forward to seeing what other tasks you have waiting for us. I look forward to working with you and with the citizens here in Wythe, and look forward to a long, productive relationship, working together to improve lives for our local residents.
Thank you, Mr. Hankins. I will say that I'll echo Mr. Bear's comments. Just the short time he's been here, he's really jumped on board and taken some weight off of Mr. Bear. And I will say that one thing, it's a shame that we didn't do public interviews, because I think everybody sitting up here will agree yours was impressive. But one thing that has impressed me is I've had several people reach out to me, both politicians and professional people that have known you for years, and said, he never told us he was applying with county, or I'd have gave you a call. Which I think it says a lot. You came in and got the job on your own merit, but they all had good things to say, so that makes us feel good.
So I'm grateful for that. When it comes to the walking on water part, I haven't done that yet.
He does have an old tractor and 2 3-legged dogs, but he assured us that they were not related. Does anybody else have anything from Mr. Hankins?
Just welcome aboard, sir. Glad you're here.
Yep. Moving on, next item on the agenda is citizens' time. I believe we have one person signed up, Mr. Junior Eversole.
I did not see Mr. Eversole come in, Mr. Chairman. He had called earlier in this week and requested to sign up. Don't know if he'll show up later, but hopefully so. I know he was interested in some of Mr. Atwell's presentation that's coming up later.
We'll close citizens' time for now in case, unless he shows up. Moving on to the agenda, public hearing proposed amendment to the enterprise zone boundary. If I can figure this new computer out. The Wythe County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing to consider amending the Wythe County enterprise zone boundaries. Public comment regarding the proposed amendment will be heard at this hearing. The public hearing will be held on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020 at 6 p.m. in the boardroom of the County Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wytheville, Virginia, by order of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Barrett, would you like to, well, we don't have anybody signed up to speak on the public hearing. Do you want to summarize the boundary adjustment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you all have previously seen this at our previous meeting. This just adds the additional properties that we have discussed, one of which being the Food City property, which did have their groundbreaking ceremony today. A very good ceremony, and glad to have them in the community. I would request at the close, I don't know if you close the public hearing, but at the closing of the public hearing, that the board go ahead and approve the resolution 2020-33 for the enterprise zone amendment.
Does that raise any questions or discussion amongst the board? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Next item on the agenda is the payment of invoices.
Make a motion, we pay the bills.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any invoice any board member would like to pull out or discuss? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
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 So approved. Next on the agenda is the minutes of our previous meeting for October the 13th, 2020.
Make a motion, we approve.
Have a motion to approve, have a second.
Second.
Any corrections, questions, or discussion? And then we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So approved. Next on the agenda is staff reports. I believe we have Mr. Kevin Williams from the Parks and Rec. Mr. Williams?
While Mr. Williams is on his way up, I will compliment him. I went over to Rural Retreat Lake, I believe it's Thursday of last week to run. He had done a wonderful job of having the trees appropriately colored on the road and all around there coming in. It is probably one of the best fall sceneries I have seen over there, and I just want to express my appreciation, Kevin. Thank you.
Took a lot of knee power on that.
A little behind on raking, but the color.
I just imagine that we'll just chop it up and mulch it. A lot easier. I'm just coming up for you all tonight to just give you an update about the campground and our continued sports seasons of sorts. But in my status report, I have a few tables here of our numbers, and I can briefly go over that. There's actually two sets, one that includes revenue from the pool last year, but I'm just going to head up and just talk about the campground this year because the pool was defunct this year anyway. But the first table that I've got out there has the total amount of revenue generated by the campground from the dates from last year and this year, the same from like June 12th through the end of the season for both last year and this year. And just overall, there was about a 27% increase from last year to this year. And then if we just included the entire season, which for last year had about a month and a half or a month and a couple weeks more, we had about a 1.5% increase this year. And all that comes from our lodging. Now, as you go through the table and you look down through there, you'll see some negative numbers from different categories of where we separated everything out as far as like food, bait, ice. The food is just our ice cream. And I think a lot of our, why there's a decrease there is because everybody came in for the pool, got ice cream at the store. Everybody coming into camp already has all their food and everything together. So that doesn't surprise me there. Our ice numbers decreased this year because at the end of the last season, our ice machine broke, and I didn't get one until about mid-July this year. So I think just having that little bit of negative amount comparatively, last year, this year, we did a pretty good job on that. And of course, our shelter rentals went down this year because everybody was canceling family reunions and get-togethers due to COVID. But the increases this year helped out a lot because I know that there was nothing else better to do. And looking at for our numbers versus our expenses, we still made the clear and had a little over 13,000 overall. And that is most of all our expenses, which is our labor and repairs. And we had some bigger projects and had some more expenses this year than in other years. But looking forward towards next year, I will have a memo and a request to the board to approve an increase in rates for next year because the minimum wage will, by my guesstimate and estimate, will increase our part-time work by about $7,000. So if we just increase by about $2, hopefully that'll cover us for at least 2 years. So our rates right now are $18 for a primitive site and $28 for an RV site, which has electric and water. If we increase that to $20 and $30 respectively, we're still within what the going rate is for the amenities that we offer. And that will at least hopefully cover most of our labor rates. And if you are just wondering about the pool, last year, revenue was about $16,000, so that's about what we probably could have lost this year. But we never, with the public pool and other counties and cities that run public pools, you're lucky to cover just your labor costs, which I look back and we covered our labor costs and have been for the past few years. It's just the rest of the expenses like water, electric, and operational costs. So for looking forward to the minimum wage increase there too, we're probably going to have to go from $3 admission to $4 admission at the pool as well. But overall, I mean, for this year, for all the hurdles that we've come across, I think that we've done really well at the campground. You have any questions about that before I move on to sports?
Mr. Barrett, how long has it been $3 to the pool?
My hair was brown, I guess.
When he said that, I really believe it was $3 when I was in high school.
It probably was. I mean, it hasn't increased in years, but I mean, if we're going to try to keep aiming to cover our labor with the admission costs, we're going to have to increase because I'm still going to push for our lifeguards to be paid more than minimum wage because they do have to be certified and they do have more responsibilities than those that are just working around the campground, cleaning up the trash and all that kind of stuff because they are protecting our public customers.
And they have to be paid to be certified as well, right?
Yeah, they have to pay to get their own certification.
Yeah.
We don't provide that, and so. But let's see, for the, I've worked with the town and took your advice and pushed back the dates as far as I could for football to where it would be workable as far as like schedule. For youth league, starting with basketball, we have registration due here in a couple weeks. And on all registrations, I've met with the Booster Club presidents, and on all registrations, we have the contingency of this may change in an instant, just depending on what the schools and what the COVID and how safe we determine it may be. So everybody signing up knows that it might not happen, but it could, and it might not look the same because working with the schools as best as possible. But gym space is going to be tight, so I'm probably going to end up planning to just have everything here available at the meetings, or at the rec center and the 4th Street basketball gym across the street here. Just because after talking to schools, they've got high school, JV, and middle school all playing at the same time, and we're going to have all our leagues playing at the same time. So that's 2nd through 5th grade there, or 6th grade. Hold on. 2nd through 7th grade, all playing at the same time as well. So we're providing some sort of season, so we'll tackle that as we go and adjust as we can. And then for football, we've got registration going on, or ending at mid-February, and then starting practice the first couple weeks of March, and then games will start mid-March and run through middle of April. And then in order for our seasons to end about July 4th, we have to have baseball, softball, and soccer all going about the same time. It's all condensed seasons, but we need to have a break between baseball and football, because my experience, a lot of volunteers float straight from baseball into football, and if we go into July, we're not going to have much time to have a break for everybody. Plus, from years past, if everything hopefully clears up by enough in July, everybody's going to be taking vacations, and it's hard to keep a team together. We've had that experience in the past. That's why we try to have the July 4th date as a date to have a break before we start back with football. So we're moving forward as best as we can and plan as much as possible. With this condensed schedule, we're not going to have any playoffs. It's just going to be a regular season and then move on to the next one. So at least the kids will be able to play, because from my experience also, or from my thoughts, if the kids are going to have a championship run, we're going to have like 3 games, and then they're going to be worried about being knocked out, and then what's the point? We're trying to develop them to be better players and learn all the skills that they can. So we'll have the season as long as we can and not worry about having a championship and have champions this year.
The schedule with the schools, might want to remember that on Sundays, they're not allowed to practice or play or nothing. So if you could have youth league games Sunday afternoon after church, and the schools, all the schools would be available, because Virginia High School League says no practice, no nothing on Sunday.
That's something to keep in mind, especially whenever it comes down to baseball, softball, because I think we have a tendency to do that anyway, because everything gets rained out. So we plan around, we play as best as we can. So that's good. That's a good thought and note to make. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have anything for Kevin? Thank you
All right,
for
thank you guys.
what you're trying to do. Hope it'll change.
We'll get something done. We'll figure something out.
Thank you, Kevin.
Kevin.
Moving on the agenda, next item is old business. Mr. Barrett, do we have anything under old business?
Do not have any items, Mr. Chairman.
Move on to reports. Ms. Gwen, who also paid $3 to get in the retreat pool back in the day.
A time or two, yeah. For somebody that can't swim, I didn't mind going to the pool or getting in water, but I swim like a rock. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, 25 years ago it was $3.
Well, your
Without a
memory's
doubt.
better than mine, so.
You're older than I am, though,
When it
sir.
comes to money. When it comes to money, your memory's better.
Oh, goodness. Okay, well, in front of you have your September financial statement, and you'll notice that for the month of September, the consolidated account contained a balance of $55,541,421, and in that amount, the general fund was comprised of a balance of $31,128,801. So overall, on the second page, the total of all funds, you see that we did have a decrease from the month before, but a lot of that just contributes to the expenditures and things like that we've had. This month will be, hopefully my office will help offset that, but with the refinancing of the bonds and the bond payments and things like that we made, you'll kind of see those numbers fluctuate as well. A couple items that I did want to point out, and Mr. Vaught had actually contacted Mr. Bayer about a new revenue line item that we're receiving, which is called Games of Skill, or Game of Skills, Skill Games, not sure what the technical name of it is. That's a new revenue that we're now receiving. The General Assembly enacted a new tax on the gaming machines that are located at truck stops and other like gas stations, places like that. And that money is divided out among so much to localities, a certain percentage to COVID relief funds, a percentage to if you had a gambling problem, like that type of program, things like that. Anyway, we've received 2 payments so far this year, and that amount that's coming into us on a monthly basis right now is $8,928. So that will continue at least through June 30th, which for us, we will receive that through August, September of next year, unless it's continued on. I would kind of foresee VML and VACO supporting this continuation possibly just to help fund localities, but you never know what's going to happen with the General Assembly. But right now, it's only a 1-year tax that the localities are receiving. And we do not share this revenue with the towns. The towns do receive their own allotment. So the money that we receive, all of that is ours. So moving on to another increase, our line item that you've probably seen increase last month when I was here. I mentioned that I had just sent out a mailer to folks regarding the purchase of dog tags. So it's been an interesting month. However, to date, well, actually, as of end of day yesterday, we've sold 2,179 dog tags. We don't sell that many dog tags in a 4 or 5 year period. So it's Millie Rothrock with the Enterprise. She had written a newspaper article, so I think that helped as well for people to understand. But we have a lot of folks coming in that they just didn't realize that they needed to have a dog tag. And so just kind of, it's sort of been an educating the public type program at this point. But that has gone very well, and will continue to. When the vets came in yesterday, and the person advised me when they brought in their stack of rabies vaccinations that we were keeping them busy, and I jokingly said, well, that's job security for you, and the person said, I've had to order more vaccinations. I ran out. I don't have enough. Well, the same thing's happening to us because we don't. In past years, we've sold so few dog tags that I'm actually going to have to reorder some of our dog tags coming up. So I've contacted Arlen Dunford with Animal Control to kind of check with him to see about a few things from his point of view before I place that order. But that's kind of where that's going. So hopefully over the years, this increased collection, as I was talking to Mr. Bayer, Mr. Hankins earlier today, can help offset maybe debt service on a new animal shelter. I know last meeting you all were talking about building a new animal shelter, which the money we've collected is not going to come close to building it, but it can help pay for it. So, and that's the purpose of it. It's also help offset your animal control expenses as well. Any questions regarding the financial report for September?
One question on the dog tags, and that's, the Code of Virginia requires that. It's not a,
Correct.
it's not a Board of Supervisors thing. It's not a
And it's
Lori
not a
Gwynn-
treasurer thing.
It's not a
either,
Lori
no.
Gwynn thing. It's,
It's been a very
No.
busy month on the
In
telephone.
2007, Code Virginia was changed to require vets to send vaccination records to the local treasurer's offices. So the vets had to start sending those copies to the office. In 2008, code changed that stated the treasurer's office, upon receiving those vaccinations and determining that within 45 days, if a tag has not been purchased, the treasurer's office is to, the exact language is bill the dog owner for the cost of a dog tag. It came into play, and it's something the office just didn't do, and of course, until I got to researching the code over the last few years and kind of realizing a few things, I realized this is something we need to be actually pursuing, because every year our dog tag revenue decreases. It just keeps decreasing and decreasing. With our system, we're still on the old, what was the old tax system, dog tags and state and estimated tax system. We're still on it. We can't track if the dog is male, female, or we label it unsexed, but if the dog's been spayed or neutered. We can't track that. So after this mailing, we have implemented a whole separate program, Excel spreadsheets. We live off Excel spreadsheets in my office, but implemented a new program that we're trying to keep track of folks as they buy tags. The 45 days can be kind of a short period of time, but my goal is on a quarterly basis that we send out reminder letters to folks that have not purchased dog tags and let them know that, Mr. Vault, we have you on file for Benji. You haven't bought a dog tag. We show that he has not been neutered, so your cost is going to be $5, $10, or $15. So I'm hoping we can work toward that. And once we get through tax season, then hopefully by the end of January, pick up on our first follow-up mailing with all of these. So it's been an experience, to say the least. I'm going to probably go out on a limb that it has been for all of you all as well.
Do you want to go ahead and say in a public meeting so everyone can hear you? You made more off of this than you paid to send all of the mailings?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, by far. By far. Revenue as of end of day yesterday, and this is not even taking out the cost for the mailer, our revenue on dog tags as of end of day yesterday was $16,000. And that's since September the 24th, when the letters came out in the mail and folks started coming in.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate you working on this. And
so we're just kind of, like Mr. Vault, like you said, it's not a Board of Supervisors thing. It's not a Stephen Baer thing. It's not Lori Gwynn. It's not the Treasurer's Office. It's not political party or anything that seems to factor in on anything anymore. It's just performing the duties of the office as we're directed to in the Code of Virginia. So.
And if you want to blame it on Mr. Barrett, now you have to include
Well,
Mr. Hankins.
I now have a new person to blame on. Since I finally got to meet Mr. Hankins today, I can blame it on him. So, but any other questions, financial report or even dog tag related or anything like that? Okay. So the other item that I had on the agenda, you had a request from me to increase the amount of cash that we keep within the office. We currently have $2,000 to keep in the office, and that money supplies the money for our cash drawers each day, and for also to keep change in the safe, to change out large bills, things like that in our cash drawers. With having 6 employees and the amount of cash that we tie up in the cash drawers, it's leaving us short on the amount of money that we have to get change. So even, this is our going into our second full week for taxes, I've probably gotten change 5 out of 7 business days so far, because we just don't have enough because of the bills that are coming in and what we have to have. So I am requesting of all of you to consider approving my request to increase our cash in the office by an additional $500 to $2,500. And this would allow us to better be able to keep more adequate change in the office, to keep our cash drawers going, that I may not have to make multiple trips to the bank because we've run out of a certain denomination of bills. But I do request that you increase that, and we would need no more than $2,500 total to support our cash drawers and to make change throughout waiting on our customers.
Mr. Chairman, page 73 of the board package, her financial statement, petty cash and other miscellaneous funds, 2 up from the bottom is cash and treasurer's office, which shows the $2,000. We would just need a motion from you all to authorize increasing that to $2,500.
I open the floor for a motion.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
Can they pay electronically?
We have no way to to collect payment on bills through Bank ACH as far as an automatic draft. People can pay online through the online payment portal that we have for the credit cards. They take Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, versus in the office, we only take Visa and MasterCard. But right now, we have no way to process automatic withdrawals from the bank for taxes. But we've had a lot of requests for it. I'm hoping as we progress with Munis that maybe when we can get, I don't know if it's going to be part of the citizen self-serve program for the tax payments, that it may be something we can get set up. I'm pretty confident it's probably something maybe even buried in the system that I'm just not aware of. But it's something that I want to get worked toward, because I think it would help with taxpayers making prepayments on a monthly basis, and even setting up payment plans. I have a lot of people in a payment plan that they want us to do an automatic draft, but I have no way to do that. But hopefully someday, Mr. Cook.
Any other questions or discussion? Here now, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Anything
Thank you
else,
very
Ms.
much.
Gwen?
No, sir, I do not have anything else unless someone has any other questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gwen? Thank you, ma'am.
Come visit us anytime. Monday and
No,
Tuesday
you want
last
our
week were
money.
busy. It wasn't too bad last few days. Actually, I think Mr. Bayer, Mr. Hankins tried to come down a time or two, and they couldn't get in the door, so they waited until today when they could
What's
come in.
what's the county tax on that gun you wanted to NRA bank?
What gun? My husband registered that gun. That's not tax on me, that's tax on him.
We were not happy at table number 9.
Table 12 was pretty lucky.
Thank you, Lori. Move on to the water committee report.
Give me a minute, I gotta flip it over. The Water Committee met on October 20th, 2020, and recommends the following. Authorizing moving forward with the PER for Barrett Mill Road Water Extension Project.
Mr. Barrett, you want to summarize that?
I certainly will. On page 87 of your agenda, obviously, the board has expressed interest in some waterline projects. Mr. Peed from Peed and Bortz took the maps that you all marked up, took the comments that were made, and looked at basically 4 of the areas that we had talked about, and came to the Water Committee meeting last week to discuss these options. This isn't all of them, but these are the ones that were primarily out there. Dunford and Olive Branch is one. A PER has already been done on that. Barrett Mill Road is the second one, and that runs all the way over and collects the Stone Meadows Road that Mr. Cook has spoke about quite a bit. They did look at that one, the option of coming from the old Beal area and going across versus coming over. It was more cost-effective and more customer served to run along Barrett Mill Road and pick up all those customers and not have to worry about a creek crossing in the process on it. Looked at the Fort Chisel and Whispering Pines area, and also Route 610. Mr. Smith, that's the one connecting from the town's line at Progress Park, coming all the way out to Max Meadows and connecting in there. As you can see, you have project cost on both of them shown. You have the number of new customers shown on both of those. You have the next column is showing the median household income, and the reason they are different, it is by the district that the project is located in. And in order to be grant eligible, it is showing the required bill for grant eligibility versus what our current average bill is in the rural development calculation standards. As you can see on the difference, the Barrett Mill Road project is the closest to our current rates being grant eligible. The committee also discussed rates. We are putting together the recommendation from the committee to share with you all at the next board meeting to give you a full breakdown of a proposal of rates and meet with you all and talk about it. But it is the closest one to being grant eligible. You see the next column on all the project is showing the debt cost, the customer revenue, and the annual county contribution that would be required for that project if it were all loan. Obviously, if we got to grant eligibility in the time frame of us getting the PER completed and revising some rates and get to grant eligibility, then Barrett Mill may be a chance of being a 75-25, 50-50 grant loan, and that would change those factors. But basically, upon review of these, the committee's recommendation was to look at proceeding with getting a preliminary engineering report for Barrett Mill Road so that we can make application to our funding agencies for construction of that project. So this is just the first step of it.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barrett? Coming from a committee that doesn't need a second, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 And the second thing is approving the Ricky Road Engineering Agreement Amendment for an increased amount of $10,000.
Mr. Barrett, you want to summarize that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you all may remember the bids came in very favorable and we were able to extend the water line up and pick up an additional, Corey, do you remember the number? I don't remember it. I don't remember, it's 9 or 10 customers up through there from people that wanted water. You had approved the change order for the company to do that. This is the change order for the additional engineering costs that went with it. 6, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions or discussion? Come from a committee that doesn't need a second, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anything else from the Water Committee, Mr. Horning?
I believe that was it.
Moving on to new business, first item is hydropower and Billsby Buck licensing. Miss Angie Grooms.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board. The main thing I wanted to do here is give you an introduction to the hydropower and the licensing at the Billsby and Buck dams. I'm a landowner on the New River off of Van Loo, near Mayor Taylor from Wytheville, and I happened to ask her what they knew about, had they been contacted by Appalachian Power or AEP about the relicensing of the Buck and Billsby dams, and she said no. So we started talking about it, and I went to the New River Regional Water Authority and talked to those folks just simply to educate you all about what's going on and why there's an opportunity. So what I'd briefly like to do today is to talk about who has the authority over the hydropower relicensing. That's the FERC, the Federal Energy Resource Regulatory Commission. Some specifics about the Buck and Billsby project and how to find out information about it. A quick thing about the relicensing process. The licenses for these dams will be 30 to 50 years. So none of us probably here may have been around or remembered the last time they were licensed, because before it was in the 1940s. Why, and I'd also like just briefly say, why is that important to Wythe County? Why should Wythe County be aware of this? Why should they be involved in it? And what opportunities are there for Wythe County? The first thing is to just say there is a great guide, and I think the information, Mr. Barrett provided you the information. I can also send the links, be happy to do that, from the Federal Energy Resource Commission about what the relicensing is, why public involvement is so important, and why they actually care about public involvement, and why people speaking up about it make a difference. The other is specifics about the Buck and Billsby project itself. The project was built, and many of you know this much better than I do, in 1913. So these plants have been around for a long, long time. As the last licensing, there was not that much push for having good public access, for having information provided to the public, to making sure that there might be things like minimum releases, which would be very important for the water plant that's downstream, would be very important for recreation, for fishing, for floating, for paddling, any of those things that might enhance both people staying at the campground as well as the citizens in Wythe County. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission puts emphasis on the environmental resources and the effects of the projects have on those environmental resources, whether it may be how often they operate the dam, how they clean the intakes to the dams, how much turbidity, how much mud that sends downstream to the rest of us. And it really seeks input from stakeholders and recommendations of stakeholders to take that into account as they go about reissuing those licenses. As I looked through the information about who they had contacted when this first began in 2019, there was no representative from Wythe County. There was nobody from the city of Wytheville. There was Carroll County. There's Galax. There's Freeze. And so I asked, why was Wythe County not included? And they said, well, the project itself, the Buck and Billsby dams, are physically located in Carroll County. Well, from my cabin in Wythe County, I can see that project boundary in Carroll County because Carroll County is just over the property line on the adjacent neighbor. So it's very, very close, and to get to most of the places that you can access the river from any of this way, you go through Wythe County to get there. You're not in Carroll County for very long. So there's a real emphasis here, and I think, frankly, you all were left out for that. AEP is very willing and said they would welcome a representative from Wythe County, from an official person such as Mr. Bayer or someone that you all would appoint to do that. And they would welcome that kind of information. The key thing with the project is they're doing studies right now, especially the environmental studies. Folks from the Virginia Game and Inland Fisheries are actively involved in those. There's a recreational survey that's going on. And if you go to any of the put-ins or the fishing accesses that are close by the Buck or Billsby dams, there's a little sign about this big that asks people to go online to the AEP site, to hydro licensing, and take the recreational survey and give them comments about what you think of the facilities. Are there adequate facilities? Are there any other comments that you think that they should know about your use as a member of the public and the recreation that you're able to access to or see for the lake, for both the dams and the rivers? Why is that important? Right now, the licenses expire in 2024. In 2022, AEP, Appalachian Power, has to submit their application. At the time they submit their application, they propose any upgrades they'll do to any access for the public, any upgrades or changes they might do to access to the projects, any things that they might do to enhance the recreation, the fisheries, the things like how they operate the plant, how much turbidity, how much mud it's okay, what techniques they're going to use to clean off the intake grates. So all of those things are included in that relicensing application. As government officials in the area, you all have a greater say-so because you speak for the entire county than just a few of us who are in the county, who are familiar with this process. And I think that's where I just wanted to make sure that people are aware of it. They have the resources to find out. And what's in it? Why is it so important to you? It's really that it has an opportunity to protect your public water supplies. Certainly, if you're getting water from the downstream plant that's there in Austinville, you certainly have industries in the area that are. Having adequate supply over the next 50 years will be important. Having water that the quality is consistent and is not made worse by the operation of the dam, how they're operated, that's important to the citizens of Wythe County. Potential economic development needs. As you look at recreational access, the ability to have increased outfitters, to have folks who are increased fishing guides, those types of things are really tied to how well the river below the dams and the area even in between the dams supports fisheries, whether you've got fish that people are going to want to be able to go out and try to catch. Are they going to be big enough that people care? Is it easy to access it? What about people who are not able to hike down a trail to get to the lake, to the river? Are there handicapped accessible opportunities for people? And looking at the opportunities for releases from the dams. In many places, and certainly around here, you hear about the Golly for different, or the Ocoee down in Georgia. There's some down in South Carolina where they have schedule releases, where they release extra water and people know that that's going to happen, and it's a big deal. You get lots of people coming out for those schedules. It's just maybe 10 or 12 Saturdays or Sundays during the summer. So opportunities to ask for those sorts of things and negotiate at the table with the power company to see what opportunities are for them to continue to be successful at running the dams, yet it be an improvement or an enhancement for the county itself. I think the main thing I'd want to do is say, if you have any questions, my background, I worked for Duke Energy for 36 years in environmental. I was always on the other side of the table, but now I'm sitting on the side where I'm the homeowner, and I'm saying, wait a minute. But to recognize, just understanding the process, it's fairly complicated, but certainly to make sure that you all know what's going on, you have an opportunity to have a seat at the table, and to have folks who are interested in it be able to support you in the best way that we can. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
I don't think so. I appreciate you and your comments, because I didn't know anything about that, and I hate to say
And
that.
I'm glad you told us your backstory, because I was sitting here, she is very well researched on this topic.
I confess, I've being at the power company a little south of here, it was, I've worked in the periphery of some of these and have really been involved and understand the processes more from that standpoint, and know that, quite frankly, it's a good opportunity to improve, especially public access, handicapped access, have places where you can drive up, drop your paddle boat off, drop your inner tubes off, and float the river, especially the section from the Buck Dam, the Ivanhoe Horse Park on the left side of the river, the Loafer's Rest on the right side of the river, float down to the Lead Mines Bridge. I mean, that's a great little float. It's a really good, but there's no other access points. And the Ivanhoe on the Ivanhoe access is pretty new at the horse park, but the one off of Loafer's Rest is a steep, eroded trail to get down there. And, you know, it used to be 10 years ago, maybe we could get our kayaks down. Now it's a little bit harder for me to get my kayak down, and just would like to be able to drop it off and paddle a little section of the river.
And I know that's one thing we've talked about for the past couple of years, is increasing recreational access and opportunities. And I appreciate you including your contact information,
Okay.
because I'm sure Mr. Barrett, Mr. Hankins will be reaching out as the process moves forward for your expertise.
I'll be happy to help.
And if we get if we're allowed to pick a citizen representative, I know who's got my vote.
Well, we might want a good front man too. and
I
I'll be
think
back.
I think we're very lucky to have a landowner that, you know, in that area that has the knowledge that you have. So I really appreciate you bringing that to
Okay.
us.
Well, thank you.
We'll definitely look into it further.
And I will be working with Ms. Grimm. She is going to make certain that she shares the contact information with me. I've also contacted our AEP representative to say, you know, make sure you add us to the list of everything that is going on. As Mr. Dalton said at the New River Regional Water Authority meeting, and he said a lot of times these are the things that you go in the informational package, and unless somebody has a strong interest in it, like Ms. Grooms, you really don't see it and brought before you. So I think it's something that we'll get the information, and we make certain if there are any opportunities that can benefit Wythe County recreational side, especially access side, we work with them on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Moving on to New River Trail State Park, Mr. Sweeney.
I do not believe Mr. Sweeney is here, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with him, and part of what my rationale of having him here was I just wanted to see what the New River Trail State Park was doing in response, or what the state was doing in response to this hydroelectric re-permitting process, and hear any opportunities or things that maybe from the Wythe County side we'll talk about as well. So I will see if I can get him to a meeting here in November to discuss with us.
Thank you. Moving on to Virginia Department of Ag and Consumer Services, Mr. Atwell. It's hard to recognize people with these masks.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Just to give you a little bit of backdrop of, I guess, why I'm here is probably about a month or so ago, Mr. Kinser with the county approached me that he had been approached by one of your citizens with some concerns, specifically in regards to pesticides, pesticides in the environment, pesticides that are being used agriculturally. So he reached out to me and our office, which I work for the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and then more specifically in the Office of Pesticide Services. So basically what our office does is regulates the use of pesticides, whether that be all the way from the registration process of getting them to be able to be utilized in Virginia, as well as the certification and licensing of businesses, whether that be commercial type businesses that apply pesticides, say in our home, like your Orkin and your Dotsons, lawn care companies, all the way down to private applicators which are ag producers that basically want to utilize what we call restricted use pesticides, which generally have a little bit higher regard for possibly being environmentally damaging or to human health. So, like I said, he had some questions about a citizen that had concerns, especially as we see the larger footprint of some of the larger commercial ag producers that are in the area. I'm sure we all see it with the pumpkin production, vegetable production, tree production, and things like that. Well, with that larger production becomes a larger scale of pesticide use out there. So naturally, probably some of you all, as well as our office, gets more calls with citizens' concerns and things like that. And we also do handle actual complaints from citizens when someone feels like that them or their property has been damaged by a neighbor or someone else applying pesticides out there. So that's basically what pulls our office into it. Just a little more specific about myself. I mean, I am based out of the lab here, here in Wytheville, but I cover 17 counties. Cover all the way from Pulaski to Lee County. And in that, basically, I cover, like I just said, all your pesticide folks that are, whether it be structural, your pest control companies, as well as ag producers, right-of-way companies. We see a lot of right-of-way folks that, whether that be contracted through VDOT or AEP, that use pesticides as well. All of those folks and all of those entities have to have folks that are certified and or licensed to make those types of applications. When they do it for hire or when they do it for like public utilities, things like that, they have to be licensed and certified through our office. The office in Richmond handles that part. We as investigators, there are 10 other folks like me across the state that are in a geographic region. We basically do inspections with those types of folks, as well as business inspections, licensing inspections, and things like that, as well as spot inspections when maybe someone is actually making a pesticide application out here. We check them to make sure that the records that they are keeping are correct and accurate, as well as when we do these records checks, we are making sure that they are using products that are labeled for use for those certain crops, and they are mixing it at dilutions and ratios and applying it properly like that. So that's sort of what our office does in a nutshell. I think he asked me that just basically to address any kinds of questions maybe that you all have had or some of your citizens that you represent have had with this. We do work underneath EPA on the federal side of things. We are not, completely attached with them, but basically they do not have inspectors out in the field like we do at the state level. So when they get concerns in the regional office, which for us, we are in Region 3, which is based out of Philadelphia. Basically, when they get concerns up there or they get a complaint that comes into them, more than likely, they just push it on down to the state level, which comes on down to, depending on who's covering that certain region in the state. But we do work underneath them. And like I tell other folks, it's a good thing, basically, that they do that, because us at a state level and as a more regional level have a whole lot more feel for what's going on in our areas than someone in Philadelphia, per se. So we can, and we do work with them. And then what drives a lot of the pesticides as far as being registered and all of that comes from the federal side. There is basically a manual about that thick called FIFRA, which is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, that basically goes over the whole process for companies wanting to get pesticide products registered, how they get it to the market, how things of that nature. Of course, any product that comes to be used or utilized is really scrutinized and really researched heavily. It don't just happen overnight. These products are pretty much, researched at all of the major universities across the U.S. And it a lot of times takes years and billions of dollars to get these products out here to the market. And even after they're out here, they are continued to be monitored and researched to make sure, that we're not seeing any types of effects after the fact as well. So it's not just like someone goes out here and just puts a product on the market and it's widely available and folks are overusing it in that regard. So with that, like I said, I just want to give you a little bit of backdrop of why I was here, a little bit of what myself does and our office does. Do any of y'all have any questions or?
Does this count as recertification?
I'm afraid not. You'll probably have to do it virtual like everything else this time.
It's worth a shot.
We'll give you 0.5 credits.
I think, I know several of us got some calls from people concerned, and, one of them was with the aerial spraying being as close as it is to New River and it being a water source. And I look here on this, and I'll butcher the name of it. Looks like bee leaf, but I'm sure it's pronounced some other way. It looks too simple.
They have some of the data sheets that you gave Mr. Kinson.
Oh, the safety data sheets?
Safety data sheet. And, it says do not apply through an irrigation system that's physically connected to a public water system. So, to me, it would seem like if you can't connect an irrigation system to a public water system, that it would be safe to be spraying it across the New River.
Basically, what that's saying in label language is very specific, and that's one of the things when we get complaints, that's what we always go back to, is certification as well as is it off-label? Are they doing something that this label does not recommend or does not allow? And more specifically, when you're talking about basically irrigation systems compared to, say, an aerial type system, when the strong concern with an irrigation type system it's connected to some type of a water source. Well, if something would happen to that water source, you could actually have some back siphoning if you don't have the proper check valves and things like that. So it gets a lot more specific and restrictive in those kinds of things as compared to, say, just a standalone type of application system, whether it be in a helicopter or whether that be on a tractor rig with a 500-gallon sprayer behind it. It's not hooked to any other type of source, so your your potential to get those other types of water sources impacted is a lot less. But I will say, yes, the aerial applications have become a lot more commonplace. They're a lot more financially feasible for these operations. When you look at, you can take one operator and a helicopter and cover hundreds of acres in a day, whereas it may take 25, 30, or 40 folks out here with high-pressure wand spraying. That's, same amount of time. So when you look at things on an exposure level, far as folks actually being exposed, it's so much less with that one helicopter guy than it is all those other folks out there on the ground. And that's what, for one thing, that's what they're finding, and it's just cheaper. They can just cover the ground so much faster. The concern is also, a lot of folks are really concerned about, well, you put it in the air, you're releasing it higher. That is true. However, a lot of times, from folks that I have talked to in the industry, feel like a lot of times that even though it is being released from a higher altitude, that the actual rotor from a helicopter actually does very well at dispersing the product basically down in the ground in the canopy of these crops, whether that be Christmas trees or whether that be vegetable crops and things like that. And then other thing, compounding sort of the issues of, like, if you look at the last 2 years, we've been so wet, we've had so much moisture, and vegetables, trees, you have a lot higher fungal type pressures, insect type pressures, so there's going to be, as a general rule, more applications during those times of years when you have, weather events like this.
But how does the runoff affect, like, the river?
Runoff certainly is a concern. Generally, when you look at the formulations of products that are used, they're in the less than 5% active ingredients a lot of times. I mean, when you look at a product that's being put down, a lot of times it's going to be 80, 90% inert ingredients, just a carrier basically to get that out there. So it's not like that 2.5 gallon jug that you buy of product, that may do 25 acres. A lot of times there's a concern, that they're putting out so much, and they are covering a lot of ground with that. But when you look at the amount of actually active product, it's much less than, say, you had a spill or an incident or something that actually dumped a pallet of jugs or something like that. But anyway, it is certainly a concern to make sure that weather conditions are right. That's the other thing that we do look at when we get complaints sometimes. We pull weather data when some of these applications are made. Of course, applicators, when they're certified, they have to go through, like Mr. Horney talked about, recertification. Every 2 years, they have to go through a recertification to maintain that certification. And in those classes is generally things that we talk about, reading the label. We talk about, making sure of environmental factors that you're on top of what you're doing and when you're doing it, and paying attention to these kinds of things out there. So, we try to do some continuing education with these folks to make sure that, we try to minimize these types of risks and exposures out there.
So on these complaints, is there any sampling, water samples done in these runoffs?
Yes, if there is a strong potential, we feel like that when we go out there on site, that we can see a strong evidence that it could be in there, yes, we can pull water samples. We have pulled some samples from wells. I will tell you from just sort of personal experience and with talking across the other investigators, the likelihood of finding that a lot of times these substances in water is a lot of times pretty low. I mean, when we talk to our lab, the state lab in Richmond is basically who processes our samples. When we talk to those folks, they pretty much say, especially when you're talking about wells, we are so fortunate where we're at with the limestone and the good water that we have that you just about have to sometimes pour it down a well in order to get it in there. That even if a well is in a runoff area, if it is grouted very well around it, it's pretty unlikely that it gets to it. Now, I'm not saying that that's every case, but that's just sort of our experience of what we found in some of our past cases.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else have anything for Mr. Atwell?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Thank you all for your time. You know where to reach me.
Moving on under new business, last but certainly not least, the Jenna house calls, and I'm sure I mispronounced that. And I think you need to bring Miss Tibbs up here with you.
Absolutely, come on, come on. He's got something for you. So yes, you said it right, so it's a Jenna house call, so yeah. So, Mr. Chairman and Board, thank you very much for allowing us to come up here, I really appreciate it. So, my name is Whitney Pugh, and I'm a family nurse practitioner, and I actually live in Franklin County, actually Boone's Mill area, so it's nice to see you here. In November of 2019, I decided that I needed to make a change in our community. I decided in regards to health care. I thought it would be nice if we could actually offer medical care back at the bedside, back in the homes and back in the businesses just to help patients and clients. I remember back, we talk about the doctors actually coming to your home, and everybody liked it, and you had a great relationship and a lot of respect for each other. So from that thought, I thought this is something we should do, and a Jenna House Calls was formed. So we provide different services. We provide flu, we come out, we'll see people with colds, cough, pneumonia, bronchitis, UTI, it continues on. Anything that you would see urgent care for, and even primary care services. Rashes, lesions, anything that you would want, we can come out to the home and actually take care of. Since COVID, we've also provided multiple other services on top of the urgent care and the primary care. So we provided things, we do physicals, we do nutritional medicine, we do functional medicine, of course COVID testing, and we even do Botox, which is kind of the fun thing. We're a full scope practice, and so since November 2019, a Jenna House Calls has seen over 1,000 clients in our area. So I live, of course, in Franklin County, and that's where I started it, and that's where we're seeing the clients at. So before I tell you about why that I'm here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My maiden name was Whitney Harlow, and I grew up here in Roy Treat. I graduated from Roy Treat High School in 1999 and went on to Radford and received my Master's of Science in Nursing in 2003. Travel nurse with my ER experience and urgent care combined, I think it's 16, 17 years, which hurts me to say that because it shows my age, combined together. So then I went back and got my Master's of Science in Nursing as a family nurse practitioner in 2009 and was board certified in family. So I've had a lot of experience with that. Since starting this over the last couple of months, I decided I really want to bring this practice to my home where I grew up. I knew that as soon as I started this practice, that's what I wanted to do. Hence, you see Crystal here with me. So Crystal is a new nurse practitioner who I've known pretty much all of my life, even in high school. We went to high school together. She's an amazing person, an amazing nurse practitioner. So I knew she would be the best one to put here in this area. So we're currently getting our EMS Agency Licensure. And the licensure will allow us to hire paramedics as well to be able to provide non-transport EMS services. So basically, they'll be able to go into the home, they'll see the clients, and then they'll telehealth us, the providers, in just to determine the diagnosis and what we're going to do. Paramedics are huge in medicine. They already go in and out of homes, and they're wonderfully trained, especially with acute care. So getting the EMS licensure, the agency licensure, would allow us to have the paramedics come on board and them to be able to work in their full scope of practice. So that's the reason that we're asking for this. Now, it is a non-transport, so we're not transporting patients. We do not compete at all with your rescue squads or your fire departments. We do not do acute calls. So if they call 911, it's not going to be us. Oftentimes, I've been to many houses where I got there and said, we need to call 911. You have to go to the hospital. So that's why I'm here today, is to ask for the Board of Supervisors for an approval to establish a non-transport EMS agency. So a vehicle would basically be parked in your county. It would be parked at Crystal's home. One of the requirements of the EMS agency licensing is to get an ordinance or resolution from the governing body of each locality where the agency maintains an office, stations an EMS agent's vehicle for response within that locality. So, again, we'll not be responding to any acute calls. We are not in any type of competition with the rescue squad or with the fire department. In Franklin County, we actually work well with the public safety there. They're actually very pleased, and even Billy Ferguson, who's the Director of Public Safety, he did request that I tell you guys hi, and that let you guys know that he does support AgenaCare House Calls 100%. We actually work with them on several different projects. So thank you, and I did send some information through, but do you guys have any questions?
She has shared information, and we'll work on either resolution or ordinance. And one of my questions back that they've been working on providing this, I was trying to understand why we had to establish them as a designated emergency response agency, which is typically a rescue squad situation. And to me, this seemed more to just be house calls. And so you sent me a gentleman's name with the Office of EMS. I tried contacting Ron Kendrick, who does a lot of our licensing here, and he's out of the office here. But no issues with it as long as it's not transport EMS. But I just want to make certain we understand. And I asked Mr. Hankins to reach out to our counterparts in Franklin County, because I get the impression you've been working in Franklin County for a while. But what prompted the need for this licensing? Is that something that's come up, or what?
So there is. So there's two different licensing you can get, especially when going in homes. And one's an HCO licensure, which we're working with the health department and getting that. The EMS agency licensure, the only reason that we're getting it is so that we can utilize paramedics as paramedics. So we can have more boots on the ground being able to see the clients. That's the only reason that we're getting the EMS agency. So we have to have that to be able to utilize them. Yes, we will be a non-transport system. So we will not transport patients. We don't have the availability or the capability. And we will not be responding to acute calls. It is a lot overboard having to get the whole agency licensure, because there's a lot of things that we won't be doing or utilizing with that. But it's specifically just to get the paramedics.
Okay.
And that was the same question I had. I didn't quite understand when you had sent me the email. But
Yeah.
that makes sense with the paramedics.
So this is
Because
a new model.
paramedics are licensed through the Office of EMS, whereas nurse practitioners are licensed by state board.
Board of Nursing, correct, yes. And we do have a collaborating doctor that's going to be their OMD. He's already done all of his stuff as well. So there's a lot of things we've already completed. This is our last thing to get completed. But paramedics are great. And I've walked into several situations, and I didn't think that I needed that. I've walked into several situations to where I had to code somebody when I got there, or it would come through on our appointment saying, Grandma's unresponsive, but the appointment was for 6 hours from now. I'm saying, wait a minute, Grandma can't wait, you know. So there's been lots of situations where I've walked into some pretty bad, circumstances. And paramedics do this on a daily basis. That's what they do all the time. Their training is amazing, so it would be good if we could partner up with them and be going in with them. That's the only reason we're doing the EMS agency. It's overkill for us to do two, but, it's two governing bodies. It makes sure our I's are dotted, our T's are crossed, we're doing everything we're supposed to do, so it doesn't hurt.
Anybody else have any questions?
No questions, but thank you, because this is just a benefit for our citizens, the way I see it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Franklin County has really welcomed it, and they've loved it.
The only question that came up before the Franklin County Board that didn't come up tonight is a question about billing, how your clients pay, if you could address it.
Yeah, sure. So we do not accept insurance. We're just one cash pay, one flat fee is all we are. So they'll book us, we'll come out, we'll take care of them, do the urgent care, depending on what they need at the time, and that's it. So we don't do any billing to insurances. Doesn't matter, you can or can't have insurance. It doesn't matter to us at all. We want to make sure that we can take care of our patients and not govern by insurance companies tell us whether we can or we can't do something for somebody because it doesn't meet their criteria. We've worked in medicine for a long time, and we've seen it's painful to watch. You have patients who can't get the care that they need because insurance won't pay for it or something like that. So we decided that we weren't going to have that governing as part of us to tell us, oh, well, it doesn't matter that, Ms. Smith needs this. We're not going to do it. We can't do it.
That's not how it should be. That's not how it should ever be.
Right. So we come and we provide the service, and that's it. Nobody tells us we can't do it. But thank you for asking that.
Well, thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Good to see you.
Thank you all.
Good to see you, too. It's like a reunion here.
I know. I was trying to remember. I'm glad I knew that y'all were older than I was. that you graduated sometime, between Mr. Barrett, I knew.
Right, yeah, I hear you. Today is my 39th birthday, so I want y'all to know I'm
Well, happy
spending it with
birthday.
y'all. I'm knocking on the door.
Go eat at some of our restaurants in the county.
Anything else under new business, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir.
What about the Mount Rogers planning
okay,
district
yep.
grant?
Yeah, at the water committee meeting the other day, we talked about Don putting in a grant for Mount Rogers. The grant went in, and basically we immediately got the response back that we've been awarded $25,000. Just request you all approve receipt of this $25,000 grant and authorize me to enter into this memorandum of agreement.
I believe everybody's got received a copy of this.
It's $25,000 in grant funds that we'll use towards our sanitary sewer evaluation survey that we currently are ongoing.
Make a motion, we approve it.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Here and then we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 So approved. Anything else under new business?
Mr. Chairman, we do have the consent calendar as item number E, is where we are on the agenda.
If I flip over, I'd see that. Entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a
Second.
second. Any questions or discussion? Here and then we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Moving on, judicial doctrine of qualified immunity for law enforcement officials, resolution 2020-32. Mr. Barrett, would you like to summarize that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you all are aware, there has been some efforts to do away with the judicial doctrine of immunity. This was a resolution that's shared with us, and we have prepared it in Wythe County's format for you all to consider action upon, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any questions on the resolution? Not, I'll open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion?
Can we exempt you from this?
No.
We're just gonna let them sue you and not everybody else.
Any more intelligent questions? We'll do a roll call.
I was going to say, Mr. Farthing, I'm assuming that I should abstain, just to be safe?
I think it
Or does it
applies
matter?
to-
I think it applies to everybody. It's not just with, I mean, it is with the county sheriff's office, but it's law enforcement immunity, which is what the state's dealing with across the board. Whether
Okay.
that's town, sheriff, I think you're okay.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Here and then we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 So approved. Moving on to staff reports. Have a COVID-19 update.
No update on that, Mr. Chairman. I have worked on getting numbers out to you all as quickly as we can. I'm also sharing with you all that metrics sheet, which I indicated my questions on a metrics sheet the other day, but now the 7-day average has us back on the negative side on our trending numbers, so the latest one looks positive. We'll continue sending those information out to you.
Moving on to county administrator report.
First thing, Mr. Chairman, is Election Day. As you're aware, this year the governor proposed, General Assembly approved making a change on a state holiday, Lee Jackson Day, which was the Friday before the third Monday was removed, and Election Day was established as a legal holiday. I would just request that the board approve this as well in the process.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is the animal welfare license plates for those in the county that buy the plates. We get a portion of those funds back. This year, we are due to receive $390 from that fund. Would request your all's approval of that $390, and we will assign this to the Wythe Bland Animal Welfare League. They use this for their sterilization program.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So
moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any question or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
Next item starts our CARES request funds. I have handed you all a summary sheet, just giving you an overview of where we currently stand on the CARES Act funding. The first request you have is from Mr. Bowers to replace the carpet in the nurse's workroom. This is up in the health department building. It is in need of replacement, and also it needs to be replaced with a flooring that is much easier to clean for the amount of contact they're doing with other patients and all. So recommend approval of this request, Mr. Chairman.
Do we need to do these individually? Or
Probably would be best, Mr. Chairman.
entertain a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
So approved.
The next is two-part. One is a request from the JIDA to approve an additional $300,000 in CARES Act funding for the Open for Business Recovery Grant Program. In addition to that, the second and third sheet are a list of the businesses that have applied for and been reviewed by the committee at their office for eligibility for getting these funds. Mr. Smith was inquiring earlier today about the status of these funds. The JIDA is prepared, have the checks written to go out tomorrow. They just wanted to make certain there were no questions on any of these before we proceeded and moved forward. They all have met the requirements of the applications in the process.
Does anybody have any questions?
They're currently have additional ones. They're meeting later this week to start those additional ones and the additional applications. And at that point in time, they think they will be up around $275,000 to $300,000 in applicants at that time, and that is the reason why their request for the additional $300,000. So, if you all would like to put an additional $300,000 towards the Open for Business Recovery Grant Program, we would need a motion to do so.
Mr. Barrett, who's approving these? Do they have a,
They've
does
got
it
a
go before the board or the committee? Or-
They've got a committee that is going through, and it's a combination of individuals on it, but they are going through it and confirming that they've got the tax records, they're showing the amount earned, because remember, that these are set up based on the income levels of previous year, and then they have to show what their impact has been in the process.
Entertain a motion to approve and, I guess, approve the funding that's been presented and then allocate an additional $300,000.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
in Wythe County?
They are all in Wytheville or Wythe County. The town of Real Retreat is running a program through the JIDA separately in the process.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Just if I have family that works at a couple of these places and some really good friends that work at a couple of these places, do I need to abstain from the vote?
As long as they're not in your household.
Okay, we're good. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Here now we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Smith?
Aye.
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 Yeah. Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Lost my place, Mr. Barrett.
Well, I'm guilty of doing the same. Last meeting, I was smart enough to print off the cover sheets on each one of these, and I didn't. You have a couple of these from the Wythe Grayson Regional Library. You have $1,034 for the sprayers, which our staff has come across that are very beneficial for the misting sprayer. You also have a $903 for the patron safety of computer keyboards, able to clean and swipe out with the covers that go with that. And the high touch areas. And see if there's one more for the library, I don't remember.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
page 270.
1364, tell me that number, 69, for the library for the protective barrier at the circulation desk.
I did have one question, Mr. Barrett, on the,
84.
on page 268, they've asked for masks, shields, gloves, and safety goggles. Do we not have that PPE already in county stock that we can give them?
Good question. I will ask, you ought to approve this, and we'll see if we've got anything within stock that we already can give them in the process. That would, if we've got any of it available on the PPE at the bottom, we'd certainly provide it.
Entertain a motion to approve the library's request.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
So approved.
And at the last meeting, y'all remember, we did some scanners for the Commissioner of Revenue's office to start getting some of their records in digitally. The Finance Department is requesting the purchase of the scanners that can be used in-house as needed by departments, but also could be used remotely if needed for scanning and putting documentation into our Tyler Munis system. As most of y'all know, with the or may not know, but in the system, all of our purchase orders, everything else we put in, everyone is scanning in the actual quotes that go with it. When we're doing the invoices, we're scanning those in with it. It all makes them digital copies to cut down on our paper records that we have here. So a request there for $3,520.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have an issue with this. We're talking about purchasing equipment, so we can work remotely at home, but yet we had a big issue about purchasing radios so the 911 center can work at home. And I find, I think personally, that having a 911 center fully equipped and ready to go work remotely is more important than having a finance officer equipped remotely. So to me, there seems like there's a double standard here, and I don't like it.
I think both are important. It's not prioritizing one over the other. There was a lot of questions asked
And
about
it's not
that.
on the list, it's been taken off the list.
Yep.
And I said, to me, having a 911 center, that COVID hits the building over there, or the room, and they need to go elsewhere, and we can't do it. Why do we need a scanner so the finance officer can work? If we keep them locked up in an office, we can keep him locked up in, or them locked up in an office. I mean, anything we're gonna do remotely, I personally think 911 center should be one of the first things.
And I concur with that. The only reason it's not on your list right now, I have been working with the county attorney on this issue. One of our challenges is the spending of this has to be by the end of December. It has to be implemented by the end of December. The challenge was, at the time we were trying to do that, we cannot claim spending the money by December 30th is the emergency. We all agree that this is a process, this is a system that will be highly valuable for dispatch to use. But it has to be put out for procurement, and the procurement time frame on it would not allow it to be done by December. So 31st. The only reason it's not on here is for that reason. We are hoping that we get a second round of CARES Act that comes in for January through June or whatever the time frame is, or if they give us any type of extension on any of these fundings, we can take and bid those items out so we can install them and have them CARES eligible. But Ms. Lang, there were quite a few questions asked about that in the process. I think she did a very good job of explaining why it is critical what we are unable to do currently if the dispatch center goes down, and what having that remotely to do, whether it's setting up in this office, whether it's setting up in the sheriff's office, whether it's setting up, somewhere else to do that.
Well, we all got an email on it, basically.
Yep.
And, I concur with them. They need to be able to do remotely, just like these other places want to do remotely. I think more so than some of these other places.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I have a question, if I may, please, sir. There's a note that says, if any of the answers to questions 5 through 7 is no, the proposed expenditures are not allowable in accordance with CARES Act, and number 6 is checked no. Does that mean it's not eligible for CARES Act money anyway? That's the way I read that, and I may be wrong.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 272, sir.
You are correct. That should not be marked no. That should be marked yes. These proposed expenditures were not included in the budget recently approved as of March 27th, 2020. And I've had several people that have gotten a little bit confused about that yes, no on that question. But yeah, the question is saying these expenditures were not included in the budget. So the correct answer on that is yes. And no, these were not included in the proposed budget.
Okay. I just
So
wanted to
should
make
we
sure.
wait to get the right?
Correct.
If you want to get a correct form, we can do that for the next meeting.
Yes.
We'll let that one
I
go.
feel better.
That's a good catch. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And on one, I will bring all that back to you all and get you all to go ahead and to approve the cost and everything to go with that dispatch system. If we can get the extended time frame on the funding, or if we get additional funding, that way we have it ready to go.
Anything else under?
No, the only other item I had was just letting you know about the broadband. We received the email that the $30 million was available for projects to be completed by December 15th. We've reached out to some of our providers in the area just to make certain they didn't have any plans on the shelf of any projects they could start constructing immediately. At this point in time, we have not received any affirmative from any of our providers of any projects that could be done, even short extensions at this point in time. Continuing to work on that. And Mr. Hankins is working on seeing if we can possibly use some CARES Act funding for some, a little bit of study to do on our broadband planning as well. So just wanted to give you an update, no actions needed on that, but that is an item we're trying to see how we can use any of it for broadband planning.
Did you get a response, speaking of broadband, you copied us on your correspondence with, was it AEP?
Yes, have not heard any response back from them on that yet.
And that was going to the Grayson County project, correct?
Yep.
Anything else, Mr. Barrett?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on to County Attorney, Mr. Farthing.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have anything to report at this time, unless you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Farthing? Here now, we'll move to the Board of Supervisors' time. Mr. Smith,
Nothing at this time.
Mr. Cook,
Nothing at this time.
Ms. Lawson.
Nothing at this time.
I forgot.
I was
your name.
going to wait to see if you remembered my name.
Corey,
Nothing this time.
Mr. Horny.
Actually, I've had a couple requests for the COVID stuff. Stephen, I think, got an email from Matthew Miller about the cannery.
Yes,
Is there any-
that is another one that is out there that we're looking at, yes.
We are looking at it, though.
I do have it, and that was one that does need to come before you all, yes.
Okay. Another one that someone else had, well, actually, I think I actually had thought of it off of, Don't Shoot Me, but it came from Joe Hale originally, was if we have extra money, we might want to look at doing I know y'all don't like doing stuff at the Apex, but the water faucets and stuff, might want to look at if we got extra money doing the touchless. I mean, I'm pretty sure that would qualify as COVID, and it would get it to where people won't be leaving water running and things like that, if we've got the extra money.
Anything else, Mr. Horny?
I believe that was it.
Mr. Terry.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Chairman.
I did attend the groundbreaking for the Food City today with Mr. Barrett, Mr. Hankins. Town was there. Mr. Steve Smith, the CEO, really nice man. If you've ever met him, very down to earth, very happy to be in Wythe County. He said they hope to be open by early May. And of course, the company's based in Abington. They employ 17,000 people and have like 130 stores, which really, I didn't realize they were that big. So, nice ceremony. Nobody got stuck in the mud. And that's all I've got.
And the chairman did a good job of bringing up Progress Park in the process. I appreciate it.
Mr. Smith did say, we were talking about their distribution center that's in Washington County, and we were talking about how that played into being able to keep the supplies, the stores supplied when all this COVID stuff first hit. And he said they employed 900 people there, and he said they're actually talking about building another one. I did tell him we had land for sale, but apparently he wants one toward Tennessee and Kentucky, but I tried to plug him. Anyway, that's all I've got. Anybody else have anything? All right, next on the agenda is closed session. I'll entertain a motion to go on closed session under Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion of personnel matters.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Here none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Terry?
Aye.
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 Now in closed session.
Anyway.
All right, I'll make a motion, we come out of closed session.
Have a
Second.
motion, have a second.
Second.
Do a roll call vote, Mr. Smith.
Aye.
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 Mr. McRoberts, will you read the certification?
I can do it. Resolution, certification closed meeting, whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative. I thought I had.
Oh, I didn't know you had yours on.
Affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provision of Virginia Freedom of Information Act and whereas Section 2.2, 3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements about Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
Entertain a motion to ratify the resolution.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Do a roll call vote, Mr. Terry?
Yep.
Aye. Anybody have anything else? Procedural question. Do we need to entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll refer to the county attorney. I've seen it both ways.
I've done it both ways, and it hit me
What's the other option?
that I just adjourned it. I call it to order and I adjourn it.
I'm not sure.
He calls it to order without a motion. Typically, it's just always been adjourned.
He just adjourned the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Farthing. We're adjourned.
But I think you also recessed the meeting.
What?
Tomorrow night, or something you say,
Yeah.
we're recessing until tomorrow night.
And I've done it both ways.